All right, peeps, here we go. I'm going to warn you up front. This chapter is long. All right. So, yeah, sorry. Just the way it is. Moving some stuff around really quick, really slow, depending on it's all subjective. But yeah, we're going to get stuff rolling here. All right, chapter 5.2. Here we go. Terrestrial food production systems and food choices. So, like, what does LEDC stand for? What does MEDC stand for? Less economic developed country, more economic developed country. If you are listening to this, that's a really jerk statement to say, but you're probably in a MEDC, a more economically developed country. You have a computer or like some device that you can watch technology over the internet, you know? Um, yeah. So, yeah, key points we're going to talk about. Enough food in the world, but its distribution is uneven. We got just like economics. We got enough money in this world. Some people got more, other people got less. Some of us are right here in the middle. Same thing with food. Some of us got more, some of us got less. Some of us are pretty poor in food. So, land and water food production have different efficiencies. So land is more efficient than water. All right. It's just that with water, we have much more water in this world, ocean, than we do in land. So different food production equals different impacts and demands on the environment. Yep. Some of them give higher yields. They have more like bang, like they produce more, but there's a lot more that goes into them too. So, yep, and different effects on the environment. Food production impacted by culture, tradition, and politics. Doubt me on that one. Just talk to your buddy about the nastiest food they've eaten. It's just what people will eat and what they will not. So, current soil use is not sustainable. The way we are using it right now is not going to help us out in the future. We got to do stuff a little bit differently. But biology, we're always adapting. You don't adapt, you die. So, types of farming, subsistence farming, food for families plus local peeps. There is no surplus. So, think of this like, like if you're a history buff, like, in the colonial period, like with the pilgrims that came over to New England, think of that like that, like, oh, a smart little farm. Oh, we got a milk cow for milk and cheese and butter and like we got corn, that we grow. We grow some wheat so we can have pancakes. And oh, yeah, we feed all leftover debris to the pigs, which occasionally we slaughter one. But, so yes, more small scale farming. All right. This is more like common nowadays with LEDCs, and there's a variety of crops they grow. Why? Because you can't put all your eggs in one basket. Otherwise, if an invasive species comes in and just eats all your corn, and all you grew was corn, guess what? You're going to come down with a bad case of starvation, which could lead to dead. So, yep. None too good. More friendly to pollinators, bees. Why? Because you got a variety, man. Like bees can go from all over different flowers and fruits. More diversity. So a lot of human labor involved in this, though. You're using good old muscles and back. Yep, the way it's supposed to. Good workout. More likely to grow native crops this way. Why? Because if you are a small subsistence farmer in the Amazon, you are probably not getting seeds to kiwi plants. So, call me crazy, but that's a pretty good bet. Not much fossil fuels or chemicals used in subsistence farming. So it's not money for tractors. There's not money for gasoline or petrol. So, yep. And there's not exactly use of fertilizers because Monsanto's not coming around to your small little farm either. So it doesn't take a lot to start up money or technology wise. You got earth, you got seeds, you got a few tools, go at it, get it done. Bummer is food shortages hit hard because no food is stored. So you grow the food, you eat the food, you store like the little bit that's left over just to get your family through the winter. And then yeah, that's that. So Cash cropping is growing crops to sell. All right. So, like, I like using wool for this, maybe coffee. Um, yeah, you're not growing the sheep to eat them. You're growing them for the wool because you're going to be selling that wool. Same thing for the coffee. I love coffee. You can't live off it though. Just doesn't have enough nutrients. So it's freaking delicious though. And if you're a teacher, it helps you get the job done. So, yep. Commercial farming. Goal: make money. Most money per acre. More cash you can get out of that land, the better. All right. Large scale, usually large farms. More with MEDCs, more economically developed countries, tends to kill pollinators with bees. Look at the almond crop in California. From what I've heard, it's like sending bees off to war. You're going to lose 30% of your hive. So, just because, like, hey, almonds, a lot of insecticides used with them, from what I've heard. Very water intensive too, in order to get almonds. So, start thinking about that when you're putting almond milk in your latte instead of, milk. It's just, I'm not saying one's better than the other. Just, there's no such thing as perfectly clean. So, um, back to this, more likely to grow non-native crops. Why? Because you don't care about growing native crops when you're into commercial farming. You care about this, making more money per acre. So, usually a monoculture. Why? Because you find what grows the best in that area, what's going to make you the best buck, and then you maximize it. Monoculture, one. Technology and chemical and fossil fuel intensive. So you don't have as many field hands working for you. You don't have as much manual labor, but you have a lot of tractors, which take fuel, and also using chemicals and technology, basically to keep the bugs and the stuff that's going to kill your crop away. So extensive versus intensive. So extensive spread crops out, but doesn't require a lot of input. So versus intensive, where it requires a lot of input but less land to maximize results. Think of this as urban farming, if it helps you out. So you're going to grow like crops in your half an acre, a quarter acre of backyard. You're like got a small postage stamp, but you know what? You're going to be banging crops out of that thing. That is very intensive. You're going to be out there weeding. You're going to be out there watering every day. You're going to be out there trimming leaves just to like increase that yield, that production. All right. Where if you're just got a field and you're like, I throw seeds out there in the spring and you know what? I check back in the fall, you know, um, that one's more extensive. You're just spreading it out. You're not getting the best bang for your acre, but you know what? You're also not putting a lot of work into it. So, pastoral farming, grazing animals on land that crops won't grow. Look, we do this out west. In fact, the US government and like ranchers have kind of fought over this. And I'm not going to claim that I know a whole lot about it. I live on the East Coast of the United States. And, but so this isn't my world. I, but so here's some stuff for you. Ranchers in the Western United States say that crops will not grow on the land. And so they raise cattle that eat the wild plants that humans can't eat, like sawgrass and stuff like that. All right. Tell me what you think would happen if the whole world went vegetarian. So look, you got this land. All right. You can't really grow crops on it. So to humankind, it's kind of useless. Also, too, you don't really want to live there because that's going to take up a lot of the water resource from the Colorado River. All right. So, what you can do though is you can put cattle on there. All right. And that cattle will eat the grass unless you get something from the cattle. All right. Yeah. You also get a lot of methane and a lot of cow farts, which isn't great for the ozone. But hey, you get something for it. So, what would happen if the whole world went vegetarian? You probably wouldn't have that land be useful. All right. So, yep, take that with a grain of salt. All right, let's move this down here. Arable farming grows crops on good soil to eat or feed animals. Mixed farming equals crops plus animals on the same farm as animal waste becomes fertilizer plus crops feed animals. So, Both commercial and subsistence farming can use water inefficiently. So arable farming, you basically start with good soil. All right. That's like what we talk about. That's not the, ranchers that are having their cattle just graze on public land. All right. That's not arable soil. Mixed farming. Think of good old colonial periods. Like, yep, I grow some corn. I got a cow. I got some wheat over on the sides. I got a little vegetable garden. Oh yeah, some strawberry patch too. I got some apple trees because I do love me some cider. All right. So mixed farming is definitely you got a little bit of everything. Um, don't fool yourself. Subsistence farming can use water inefficiently just as much as commercial farming. So, all right, so food facts. Malnutrition equals bad, unbalanced diet. Can be under or overnourished. So you can be obese and malnourished. Okay. It's a problem we have in the United States. You could be undernourished, like some of the pictures you see of people starving, and that's not good either. Or you can just be flat out unbalanced. Like, hey, look, your vitamin content is low, but your donut content is busting. It's just doing great. You're eating a lot of donuts. Not a whole lot of nutrients in there, though. All right. Undernourished. Food doesn't give enough energy. So, skinny. All right. Unbalanced. Food has enough energy but lacks the nutrients. Back to those donuts over vitamins. All right. Food production has increased, but so has population. So that's not good. Um, like, and there's things that they just say that so far we've kept up with the population, but they do have a worry in the future that our population is going to overtake our ability to produce food. So MEDCs, food is cheap. Yep. Variety of foods. Yep. Got that too. Go to your supermarket. You'll find foods you never even knew existed. You can get what you want regardless of the season. Strawberries in December? Yes, please. Um, Exotic foods are available. So, like where I teach, there's a lot of students that have a heritage with Puerto Rico or Jamaica. And you can have the foods that your family, ancestrally like had growing up. Callaloo, you can have avocados, you can have sugarcane, like things like that, plantains. Oh, love me some plantains. Um, like, yeah, you can get them even though we're in a frigid, environment where it snows during the winter. So, um, what foods do you eat that doesn't grow in your area? Bananas, for one, for me. All right. Yep. Oranges is another. Yeah. Never seen orange grove till I met my wife and moved, and we visited Puerto Rico. I never saw a banana tree either. Had a ton of them though. LEDCs, cash crops, coffee, cotton, biofuels, etc., can be grown for money but can't give nourishment. This is a problem you have in those LEDCs. So in Egypt, they had food riots. Like literally, they rebelled against the government. But you always hear about Egyptian cotton. Can't eat cotton, but you can sell it for money. All right. Um, Struggle to feed the existing population. Factors that affect the food we grow plus eat. Climate determines profitability. If you're trying to grow bananas in New England in the United States, you are not profitable. A, you can't do it naturally. And B, the greenhouse cost would be significant. Those bananas would be expensive. So we don't grow bananas here. What do we grow here in New England? All right, let's start off with sweet corn. It's a tastier corn variety than the corn we give to cattle. It's really good for eating. We grow apples, although they're more expensive than the apples you can get from Washington. All right. Let's see what else we grow. We've got an awesome dairy industry off in Vermont and New York State, so we've got a colder climate that's grows grass for cows as well. So that's a lot of our, in farming that we do in New England. So, that's where we. Hmm. Cultural plus religion. What's the nastiest food you've eaten? For me, it's andouillette. When I was over in France, I ate it. I was like, it's a sausage. I'm like, I can eat just about any sausage I've ever seen. Unfortunately, this one beat me. It's the anus of a pig. Yep, I ate it. I tried to anyway. Didn't really like it or finish it. Political. But again, that andouillette, the reason why I ate it was because, hey, I'm in France. It's andouillette, you know? So, political, define tariff. Oh, a tariff is a tax basically that the government puts on imported materials like food or anything else. Should Mexico put a tariff on U.S. corn? We can grow corn a lot cheaper here in the United States than they can in Mexico. The only problem is in Mexico, they've got these beautiful different like varieties, heirloom varieties, like natural, like stuff you wouldn't even think about for corn. The problem is in the United States, we grow genetically modified corn, which we can grow a ton of at a lot less cost. And then so we just sell it to Mexico for cheaper than they can grow their native corn, and we kill their industry. Um, so should Mexico put a tariff on U.S. corn to protect their corn farmers and their corn crop? All right, it's up to you. Socioeconomic. How has the war in Ukraine affected the prices at your local bakery? They've gone up. Why? Because Ukraine produces a ton of wheat, and you need wheat for things like donuts, all right, baked goods, yeah, cookies, stuff like that for flour. Okay. So yeah, the prices have gone up. What's something else that affects what you eat? Um, for me, it's actually the environment. I tend to be environmentally conscious. So I look at how sustainable something was grown. I try to eat seasonally. Those strawberries in December, I love them. But you know what? They flew in from Mexico, and I can get fresh strawberries down the road in May. So I hold off. All right. Um, for a lot of people, unfortunately, they don't have the issue that I have. There's this money. So when you only have so much money and you have to make it last, you go for cheaper food. So cheaper food does not always equal out nutritious food. So, yep. Problem to think about: biofuels versus food. Biofuels are crops we grow and use instead of fossil fuels. Biodiesel instead of diesel. So you can get biodiesel from vegetable oil. All right. It's actually the diesel engine was made to run off peanut oil, believe it or not. You've got a tractor. Sorry, this is like a sock, but we're going to pretend it's a tractor. It goes over the peanut fields, and like it helps the peanuts grow, and then you process the peanuts and you take the oil, which then you put into the tractor, which makes the tractor go. So it's one big cycle. The problem is diesel fuel became cheaper than the peanut oil, so everyone converted to the diesel oil and not the peanut oil. All right. Sorry. All right. Now, ethanol instead of gasoline. We take corn in the United States. Hey, I told you we grow a lot of it, and we break it down and we ferment it, which gives us ethanol, and then we put the ethanol into our gas. So when you fill up your gas tank at E85, that means there's 15% ethanol in there, and that's 15% of that gallon of gas. Here would have been a gallon of gas, that you would have used, and 15% of it is now alcohol. So you use less gasoline by using ethanol. There is some dirtiness to that, though, and I have to research that a little bit more. I've heard it actually takes um, like gasoline to make that ethanol, so it's not efficient. Um, where were we? Oh yeah, burning wood instead of heating oil. This is old school New England. So like if you're off in Vermont or in the country, you're probably not using oil. Why? Because it's expensive. When you can just cut down a tree, dry it over the winter, and then use it next winter to heat your home. Oh yeah, it's free. Now everyone's favorite word. So yeah, that's what a lot of people do here in New England. You know, it's got a history to it. In a wood burning stove, fireplaces are not efficient. Populations have rioted against governments because of lack of food or cost. So when you start looking, like when you start growing these plants for biofuels instead of and you can't feed your population, people get pissed and people riot. Why? Because they don't like dying and starving. All right, it's not a good experience. So, is it more important to use farmland to feed people or reduce fossil fuel use? Tell me what you think. There's no right or wrong answer as long as you back it up. All right. Food costs a rich person a smaller percentage of their income than a poor person. Do the math out on this one with me. There's a $100 grocery bill per week for a person that earns $26,000 a year. So that's like $500 a week. All right. It's 20% of their income gone. All right. Now let's pretend you're balling. You're making 100K a year. Actually, it'd probably be more like 104K for this one. But hey, look, I don't teach the math. So a $100 grocery bill is roughly 5% of your income. You're like, oh yeah, 5%. Let me raid my couch. You know. Is the United States a net importer or exporter of food? Oh, this is nasty. We were like a big time exporter, but I've heard this is the first year ever where we're going to be an importer of food. That means we can't feed ourselves. And that's bad because like then we're dependent on other countries to feed us. And I don't like depending on other countries to feed us. Kind of makes us dependent and just food poor. I don't, yeah. All right. All right. Food production and distribution around the world. This graph right here, knowing what you know, what can you tell me about Brazil's increase in food production? Well, here's Brazil's food production down here in 1992, and here it is up here. So they got a lot more food production. Now you can say that they've done it more efficiently, or you can think that they burned down a lot of rainforest and now use it as farmland. All right. So probably a little bit of both, but unfortunately burned down a lot of the Amazon for farmland. Politics of food supply. Um, Having excess food to trade gives a nation power over nations that are forced to import. Importing food can also undermine local farmers because the imported food is cheaper than the local. So having excess food gives, like in the United States, when we had a trade war with China, like what do we give China, right? Soybeans, pork, okay? And the bummer is you need food to live. So we kind of had China like is a hard negotiation tactic by us, all right? Um, Unfortunately, China put a tariff on our soybeans and our pork. So it just made it more expensive. So the farmers in the United States kind of suffered in that trade war. All right. There's more to it, but we'll get into that. So importing food can also undermine local farmers because the imported food is cheaper than the local. So yeah, that corn in Mexico, if we grow it cheap in the United States, we put them out of business. So, yep. Same thing with Argentinian beef. If it's cheaper to import a cow, meat from Argentina, then you're probably not going to grow a cow in Texas. So, corrupt or incompetent government doesn't always distribute food equitably. So, I put the word incompetent in there just because different governments have different efficiencies and incompetencies. Um, watch with a hurricane when it blows through and how quickly you can get aid out to people. All right. So, MEDCs eat more calories, meat and fish. LEDCs eat more cereals or grain. They're not as nutritious. So, yeah, you might get to see my wife here in a second. A brief history of agriculture. All right. Livestock farming. Why farm animals? Well, they're originally known as a beast of burden. All right. Um, Animal domestication came before crop farming. So long before we started growing crops, we started just herding animals and putting them in a pen and be like, you know what? Your dinner later, maybe another day, but your dinner. All right. We also started putting animals to work for us, which is what we call a beast of burden. Put animals to work. We'd have oxen, they'd pull the plow. All right. Dogs would herd the sheep for us, train them. All right. Cats would chase down the mice, which then there's no mice to eat our like plants and fruits and vegetables. Hurt. Cats for the win. All right. Also, too, animals give us other things that help us survive, like leather, furs, and wool. You know, I don't care what where you live, you probably are using some form of these. Also, tools. So, livestock can eat plants, humans cannot. So, like, this comes with pigs quite a bit. Like what we used to do in colonial period, and actually still do in some areas, is any of the waste, like from dinner, like a corn cob, you can't eat it. Like, the carrot top that you're not going to eat, the apple core, you know what? You just throw it into the pile and you give it all to the pig because the pig can eat just about everything. So, also too, we talked about ranchers out west with their cattle, about how they can eat sawgrass and other stuff that me and you can't. Um, Growing crops, arable land. All right, let's take a look here. Land is cleared, seeds sown deliberately. So, first thing you do with arable land is you clear it out. Get rid of everything. Get rid of the biodiversity. Don't need biodiversity if you're growing a monoculture anyway. Seeds are sown deliberately in a certain pattern. Land is plowed, monoculture. Like you're growing one crop. All right. Fertilizers are added to increase crop yields. If soil is acidic, lime is added. Not lime like the fruit, lime the material. So it's like it brings the pH, it's basic. So it basically deacidifies, uh, the soil, makes it more basic. All right. Irrigation, if needed. You try to stay away from irrigation for one, because it increased cost. Two, over time, you're not always guaranteed you got water, so it's non-sustainable that way. Harvesting takes away nutrients, minerals, water, plus biomass from the environment. So look, you grow crops on your farm. Hopefully you're successful. Well, guess what? Because you're successful this year, all that biomass is gone. So it took away water from your land, it took away minerals, it took away nutrients, and it also took away the actual physical plant, the biomass, gone. So you got to do something to replace that. Over time, soil gets depleted. All right. And it just becomes dusty and dry, useless to grow things in that soil. Crop rotation helps to reduce soil degradation. You can plant legume crops every 4 years. So, like, crop rotation is where, like, all right, in the field across from our school, they plant one year, they plant corn. Next year, they plant tobacco. Next year, they plant wheat. And then maybe the fourth year, they plant like a legume, like beans or something. And that what they do is the beans fix nitrogen like to the soil, and that nitrogen helps all the other crops grow. They do it about every 4 years. So another year they might just let it go wild. So, um, and they actually, instead of growing wheat too, they might just grow hay there. That's a common thing because those cows in our area, they need hay to eat during the wintertime. All right, so dirty industry here for you. Palm oil, rainforest in your shopping. Yep, that's the title of the paragraph in the book. Palm oil is used in a lot of different things. It's used in Nutella, it's used in chocolate, it's used in dish soap, lipsticks, lubricants, to get things to move, biofuels, a lot of different things. Most of palm oil comes from plantations in Southeast Asia. It's not native to there. It's native, I think, to Western Africa and Central America. But we brought it over because it's great growing conditions for it. If not cut, then the rainforest is illegally burned. So a lot of times what they do is they cut the rainforest down to make these palm oil plantations. However, though, they're like, oh, somebody owns the rainforest there, or the government won't let us. Oh, well, you know what? Burn it. All right. Always a mistake, though. And the whole rainforest gets burned away. And then they are like, oh, well, what are we going to do with this burned out land? Oh, I guess we're going to grow crops there. Palm plantation. All right. All right. It's not just in Southeast Asia, it happens quite a bit in Brazil. So, um, positives about palm oil plantations, not about burning the rainforest. It's employment for some local people that would otherwise not have jobs, and it gives a source of income. All right. You also export something, which is great for trade. It brings money into your country, which you desperately need. Negatives, a lot of herbicides plus pesticides in monoculture, which poison other animals. Also, elephants plus other rainforest animals come into the plantations looking for food and are terminated. I'll let you figure out what terminated means. All right. So if they're in the way of you making money, farmers are going to get rid of them. Also, too, if there is a fire that breaks out on a palm oil plantation, it is nasty from what I've heard to put out because palm oil is basically like gasoline. Yeah, good luck putting that out. So, um, yeah. Farming energy budget. Difficult to determine energy of food for a lot of reasons. For meat, do we measure the meat or the total weight of the animal, like the fat, the skin, all the stuff you don't eat, the bones, the brain, stuff like that, the vital, or do we measure just the meat? Same thing for the crops. Do we measure like the head of broccoli or do we measure the whole plant and like root system? So it's pretty tough to measure. Efficiency of food looks at input energy, output, and storage. So, cereal grains is the only food that is greater than one to output to input ratio. So, if you're growing oats, if you're growing wheat, if you're growing that sort of thing, it's gonna get you get more out of it than you put in, basically. All right. Meat contains more energy per gram than carbs generally. So if you've got I'll talk about that in a second. You would have to eat a lot more food if vegetarian than if a meat eater to get the same calories. So if you were to eat like 100 calories of meat, it'd be this much. Where like 100 calories would be like, and rice and like beans would be like that much. So generally, you need a lot more carbs than you can meat to get calories. Moving 100 calories of grain takes more energy than 100 calories of beef, fossil fuels. So think of it this way: you got an airplane that is leaving, Argentina and flying to it's an area that does not grow, uh, um, Argentina to Europe. Okay, so we'll say France. So if you were to pack that airplane up, like you could get a lot more calories of beef in there than you could a lot calories of wheat. All right, this much wheat is like 100 calories. This much beef is like 100 calories. So meat is more nutritious as far as calories go. Describe how the biomass of a field of crops might be measured. So for this question, harvest a sample crop size, not the whole field, but just a little sample. You're going to dry it and then weigh it. And then whatever number that is, you're going to multiply that by the rest of the field. So, yep. So, again, that question: harvest a sample crop, dry it, weigh it, and then multiply it out over your field. There you go. Rice production in Borneo and California. Traditional, extensive Borneo. Extensive again means like it's spread out. You're not trying to get like the most bang for your buck out of like an acre. Low input of energy plus chemicals. It has a high labor input. You're out there every day. Low productivity. Doesn't produce a lot. Limited selective breeding. So you're not really like, oh, that's the perfect rice and that's the perfect rice. Let's mate them to get the future rice seeds to be the best. All right. Non-GMOs, they're not just genetically modified, they're more heirloom native crop. So polyculture, you're growing the rice, but you're also might be growing catfish in those in the rice paddies. You're probably growing some other stuff around that area as well. Small effect on small effect on biodiversity. Does not mess around the nature around, doesn't much. And there's little soil erosion because of this. Now, intensive is more Cali. Um, High input of energy plus chemicals. So you're having to put a lot of energy into it and a lot of chemicals. When they mean energy too, they're talking fossil fuels. So low labor though, high productivity. You're getting a lot out of your farmland. It's producing a lot of rice, and it's strong selective breeding. You're definitely pulling the best like rice seeds. Be like, okay, this one and this one will make the ultimate rice children for future generations. So GMOs, oh, you bet they're doing those. Genetically modified organisms. It's where we start selectively putting genes in and kind of like choosing what we want. So monoculture, we only grow one crop, rice, baby. That's all we do. All right. Reduction in biodiversity. So this one, because we only grow rice around, the only animals that are going to stick around are the animals that eat rice, and even then, we're going to scare those away by insecticides and pesticides. So yeah, we do a number on biodiversity. Oh yeah, and we cleared out all the other plants in the area, so we don't have to worry about plants, messing up our rice production. Strong soil erosion with this, unfortunately, though. So all right. Terrestrial versus aquatic food production systems. Look at our land food pyramid. We eat a lot of plants that are at the bottom of the food chain. So that means like literally they come up from the soil. They what their nutrients going into it are soil and sun. All right. That's it. And then we eat them. Tomatoes. Me and you eat them. Or we eat cows, okay, or livestock. So it goes like, ground, plants, we eat the plants. And if we don't eat the plants, the cows and the animals do, and then we eat the cows and the animals. So we're not to like secondary consumers basically on land food pyramids, if not primary consumers as well. Um, this means land food pyramid uses solar energy efficiently. So, yeah, we just use our solar energy very efficiently with the land. Aquatic food pyramids for humans. A lot of seafood we eat is higher on the food pyramid, so losses a lot of initial or solar energy. So we don't eat like the little microplanktons and stuff. We eat the shrimp, but then like we start going up the food chain. We're on like the fourth or fifth rung before literally we're eating them. So increasing sustainability of food supplies. The problem is population is growing, but the amount of farmland is shrinking. We have less farmland, but the population keeps increasing. We already have trouble feeding people as it is. So that is a problem. Malnourished already need better food. So, like, we should really, instead of putting out more people, maybe start treating the people what we have better. So, problem equals MEDC's populations should be eating less meat to improve efficiency. They aren't. If anything, the LEDC countries are starting to eat more meat. And then, instead of like MEDC's reducing the amount of meat. Identify 2 reasons why a human vegetarian diet is considered to be more energy efficient than a diet containing meat. Less energy is lost in trophic levels and entropy, and more energy. Sorry, we more efficiently use farmland than. Those are your 2 reasons, really. So, factors that decrease farmland: soil erosion, salinization, desertification, urbanization. This is a big one where we live. Farmers selling off the land for people to build houses on because they can just, farming's a lot of work, and selling off your land is a lot of money really quick. All right. Um, so, ways we could improve sustainability of food: maximize the yield. All right, I can bring this down here. Maximize the yield. Improve technology to get more out of the land that we have. Mix planting to conserve soil plus water. All right, that'd be a good idea. All right, so you don't just grow one monoculture. All right, no plow tilling. The problem is with plow tilling is it kicks up a lot of greenhouse gases when you do it. So, and greenhouse gases increase the temperature of the earth. Buffer zones around farmland to catch excess fertilizers. Unfortunately, our Supreme Court in the United States just undermine the EPA's ability with like wetlands and whatnot and marsh areas along the Mississippi. So a lot of those fertilizers will, the buffer zones will be gone, and those fertilizers then go right out and create algae blooms. All right. Alternative pest management to insecticides. So instead of spraying so much insecticides, start like planting some ladybugs or some other things you can do. Alternatives. Smarter irrigation, whether it's drip irrigation or just having it covered, is a good way to go. Alter what we grow. GMOs do have positive effects. They do. Okay. Um, Look, apples have been genetically modified for thousands of years. So that's from an arborist friend of mine. So we've been GMOing it for a while. All right. They do have some positive effects. It's just, this isn't Disney. There's no villains and perfect heroes. It's, good and bad. It's gray zones. So, um, agriculture, hydroponics, growing stuff inside in a more controlled environment. Urban farming basically is soil conservation crops. So that way that we hold on to the land that we have and it's not just going right down the stream. So a new green revolution. Agroecology. This creates like a closed loop. It's kind of like a utopian community of a farm where all your nutrients and energy basically stay in on the farm and like none is lost. So interesting. Drought proofing farms. Shade coffee is like in just any sort of plant that gives shade. Like I could make a really bad joke about like, you know, don't worry, you've got friends and family to throw shade at you. So the farms just need friends and family. But, shade farming actually keeps a lot of the sun off of the ground below it. So it's good in that it's good against drought, basically. All right. And here in the Connecticut River Valley, we grow shade tobacco, which they use for the outer wrappings of cigars. And you can see them put nets over the top to really protect against the sun. So drought resistant crops as well. Reduce food waste, LEDCs, food production plus storage. So um, LEDCs lose a lot of food from just improper storage, and also like the production of it is not efficient at all. So that's just those small subsistence farms, you know. MEDCs, like our countries, we tend to lose quite a bit through consumption. Whether it's supermarkets throwing stuffs out, that's not perfect. We're like, oh my God, this tomato isn't perfectly round. Oh, the bananas are now yellow. Oh, okay. Instead, there's things you can do like, hey, sell them for a discount, give them to a food shelter, give them to pig farmers to have them use it for compost. Okay. Families overbuying. Hello, Costco in the United States. Do you really need the 24 pack of croissants that were probably made a while ago with preservatives, and the person who made them doesn't really care about you? Okay, kind of an opinion on my part. But yeah, systems to bring waste food to livestock. So we talked about MEDCs too, overconsumption. We have a problem with obesity. Just saying it, you know. That's how we reduce that's a waste of food there just to feed obesity. So monitoring plus control. Regulate imports plus exports. I'm gonna bring this down that way. So you can do this with a government agency where they start controlling what comes in and what comes out, so they protect like the local economy. They do it in the European Union for quite a bit. Large farming industry raises standards on their farms. So like if the actual corporations that run the farms are like, you know what, start doing this better for long-term gains. All right. Also individual wise, like start making decisions when you're at the grocery store. Be like, you know what? Strawberries in December, I think I'm going to pass, you know, um, just because of what it takes to get them there, you know. So change our attitudes about food, diet, eat different crops, eat stuff that's grown, that's more sustainable. Maybe a vegetarian diet, which is the next one, is like eat less meat. Don't go full vegetarian. Try to do like a vegetarian meal a week. Oh yeah, cheese pizza is vegetarian. Who doesn't love that? Um, Probably lactose intolerant people, but all right, bad joke. All right. Improve food education. Know where your food comes from. Know what a proper diet looks like. Increase insect consumption. Look, this one here, I don't know if I could do it. Cheap protein. All right. Yeah, you can grow crickets and they're like back up tomorrow, like that. All right. There's a teacher at school. They ate cricket protein bars. I don't think I got it in me, but actually, there's no difference really between crickets and lobster, though. So think of it like that. Um, Reduce food processing, packaging, plus transportation. Label where food comes from. That way, you know you're educated as a consumer. Keep in mind, sometimes transportation takes less energy than altering a growing climate, greenhouse. So, yeah, they talk about this. The amount of green for transportation sometimes is not always as bad as you think. They grow beans in Kenya, and they're actually pretty environmentally friendly. And it takes it puts more carbon in the atmosphere driving 6.5 miles to the grocery store than it would to bring those beans from Kenya to the United Kingdom. The book gave me that one. So, yeah. This down here, area used for grain production and quantity of grain production between 1990 and 2014. This is in Brazil. Now, the crazy thing is when you read down here, Brazilian sugarcane industry association. Now, I'm thinking, is sugarcane really considered a grain? But hey, that's a cash crop down in Brazil. They export it like you wouldn't believe. In fact, the Brazilian sugarcane industry put the Puerto Rican and Jamaican sugarcane industry just about out of business because they couldn't compete with the prices. All right, so let's take a look here. Harvested area. Looks like the harvest area is actually describe the relationship between the harvested area and grain production as shown above. Well, it looks like the grain production has increased and the amount of harvested area has only increased just like a little. All right, but like the production has increased a lot. So that answers that first question. Um, and who produces? All right. So next one. Outline 2 reasons for the relationship between the area used for grain production and the quantity of grain produced. Well, there's been more intensive farming with technology, plus increased fertilizers and irrigation to be used. So that answers that one. I think that's actually 3. But yeah, there you go. All right, peeps. Good luck. Sorry the chapter is so long. Is what it is. I actually shortened it some.